Uh, okay. There's that hidden voice under the hat, Peter. Okay. Yeah, that was yeah. So anyway, as I said, I'm going to give you folks all ample time to get your cards together. And I will even put the three cards here in the chat. Okay. So it's arrogance in the neg pole. All right. And then it is self-love in the pause pole. And the last one is, oh, excuse me. Actually,
what numbers?
oh,
Yeah.
I'll go do numbers then. All right. So arrogance is number 27. And mature soul is actually the second one, which is, let's see, 74. 74. And then self-love is 57. Okay. So there you go. So I'm putting that in the chat right now for you all to see. And it's in that order. So it starts with the negative pole of arrogance, card 27. It's number 74, mature soul in the positive pole, by the way. Sorry, forgot that. And then self-love in the positive pole. And because Jean reminded me that she wanted me to spend more time on making sure I talk about the layouts and what they mean and what they are and so forth. We're going to dissect this, and I will tell you already that this is the past, past, present, and future spread. So this is a three card spread, and I'm going to be bringing it up in just a moment. But while you guys are sorting through things, let me make this a little bit more informal, and then open today's class by asking you, are there any questions of me, of things that have come up for you about using the cards or your experiences, or you remember we've got three classes yet, so I'll still be covering a lot of topics, but you may be, as good as students as you all are, you may be just racing ahead and having them come to mind and all that kind of great stuff.
Beth has a hand.
Beth has a hand. There she is. Okay, hi Beth. What's your question?
I was just curious, since we magnetize our deck to ourselves.
Yes.
If you do a reading for someone else, do you get a neutral deck that's meant for the public, or do you use your own deck because you're viewing it through your own filter?
That's an excellent question. And what I would say is that while the deck is bonded to you, it is also, you and your relationship to the other person. So you are the vehicle to them. And therefore, since the deck is your tool, your vehicle, to assist them to use your own. In other words, there's no need for a neutral deck. However, if you want more neutrality, and let's say you can't be physically present with the person, which is more common these days anyway. Excuse me. You can always take them online to the MMCards site or the Michael Teaching site and use that online and have them draw their own cards. Does that answer your question? Does that make sense?
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, because remember, one of the things I'm emphasizing is you guys are the emissaries. You guys are the translators. You guys are the literally the ambassadors of these cards and the Michael teachings, to the degree that they have impacted your life and that they mean something to you. And then when you pull them out because you think one of the people that you're friends with or that you're interested in that might get some benefit out of it, remember, it is about you as much as it is Michael and the cards. The two of you have created a fusion. Now, one of the things that I have not talked about, but this brings up a good point, and I'll take Renee's question as soon as I finish this statement is, remember, you always can decide for yourself whether you yourself receive their question and then do the shuffling for them in whatever way you want to shuffle for them, or do you hand them the cards and say, here, divide these into piles, or do the mess, as I like to call it, just laying them out and just spinning your hand around, or handing them and making sure for the preservation of your cards. I know you all have heard me say this a couple of times. Remember to learn, yes, in the positive poll, Tony. Remember to use that flop method, because if you do the bend and fold method, you're very much likely to damage your cards, and then you'll feel bummed, especially because you'll start to recognize the damaged cards, and then it'll be biased. So next question, Jean, goes to Renee. She had her hand up, and then I'll answer yours. Go ahead, Renee.
I didn't really have can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I didn't really have a question, but I had a comment. You told us to do spreads for homework. And since I got these cards a couple of years ago, I've never really done much with them. But I did the homework and did the spreads. And I was very impressed that I read tarot cards, but of course this is different. And I'm very much aligned with your cards because I got the answers to my questions that were just mind-blowing. So I'm very impressed with the alignment of myself with the cards. And I just want to say I'm very excited about that.
Oh, thank you, Renee, for the comment, and I'm very happy for you. I really want to thank Renee, everybody, not just for her comment, but Renee, literally in the last year or so, a couple of times that we've had sessions, she says, "When are you going to have your cards class? When are you going to have your cards class?" So I really compliment her for helping to get a fire under this and helping to make this happen. Okay, so thank you, Renee. Next, Jean, and then Abigail.
So I am not sure how people feel about this, but as a tarot reader, I kind of feel like I'm the boss of my cards. So meaning my cards don't absorb any energy that I don't decide they're going to absorb, if that makes any sense. So when I do tarot readings, if the person's there, I give them the deck to shuffle and to divide and to pull the cards from. That kind of gives it their energy. But if I'm pulling for someone, I just state an intention. I'm doing this for you. And, I kind of feel like that gives enough energy to the reading that the cards will come out for them versus for me. I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Jean, that is an excellent input. I really appreciate it. Because remember, folks, in the context of this course, weds two major things that I have been trying to weave together for the benefit of understanding. Granted, many of you are Michael students, but I have been coming from this course as saying, what if we adopt the Michael teaching terminology to divination as a means of interaction? And of course, divination has some of its, if you will, its own structures, its own rules, its own, hobbies involved. As I said to you last time, divination is different from channeling because you have this neutral medium, this visual medium. And it's a medium that the actual participant and the reader both participate with, both interact with. So you're co-creating. Now, to a degree, that may be true in a channeling. My fellow channels here, Terry and or Dawn might, have something to say about it. But I know for myself and my own way of experiencing it, the person is at least bringing their presence. But when we're coming to channeling, remember that they're asking me to channel. So it is, in a very real sense, Michael through me giving them feedback. But in a divination, that person is reacting to the images, to the words, to your questions, your triggering. And you are the space holder while they are having this interaction. And so in that regard, it really is a much more dynamic kind of two-way participatory experience. And that's why I've, tried to emphasize that in this course and empower you all to know that. But like Jean said, like any kind of divination system, and remember last week I showed you a few. I talked about traditional tarot, but I also showed you I Ching, which uses trigrams, and you can choose trigrams in a number of ways. The Chinese use marked sticks, they use coins. You could even use it with a paper form like this. I also showed you the runes. They are both in stone form. They also have them in various other representations. All of those are again interactive. The thing about that, for me with the Michael motivation cards, that I thought it was so profound, and why they kicked my butt to finally get this done, because they gave me the idea 25 years ago, and said, and I never assumed, they would want me to do it, because I'm not particularly an artistic person. And but they finally got to the point where saying, well, you've got Photoshop, right? Do this. So because let's face it, the structure of the overleaves and the dialectic triad nature of most of Michael's concepts are absolutely perfect for this kind of visual medium and this kind of delivery system. So I went ahead and took a stab at it, and here we are. So thanks a lot. So Abigail, go ahead. Your next question. Abigail, did you have a question, or did she freeze? I wonder.
I think she's frozen.
Do you think she's frozen? Okay. She was so.
Can you hear me?
Oh yes, I can hear you now. Okay.
Can you? Great. So I missed last week's session, unfortunately, because I was at a festival, and while I was at the festival, I decided to pull some cards. I had a situation that I wanted to buy on, and so like if I did this, yes, or if I didn't do this, I pulled some cards, and if I did do this, I got higher moving, the card in the positive pole, and I decided to do it, and I ended up going on stage and becoming a rock star. And I just wanted to really place value in these cards for guidance as well, just for ourselves, not just answering questions, but saying, if you do this, if you take this leap, great things can happen. So I just really wanted to thank you guys for that.
Thank you, Abby. That's awesome. By the way, everyone, it gave me a smile when I saw when she told me, or when she sent me a photograph of what she did. The positive pole of higher moving is harmony, and she sang with a rock band. Okay. All right. So just to let you know, or at least an electric band. I don't know if it was rock or country, but anyway, whatever it was. Point is, I just smiled when I saw the picture. I said, sometimes they just have a sense of humor on the wordplay, Okay. So anyway, all right.
Yep.
All right. So, okay, I don't see any other hands. So, if it's okay with y'all guys, I'm going to share this. We're going to go, and we are going to.
Quick question: Is the maturity sign card in negative or positive pole?
It is in the positive pole.
It's in the positive pole.
It is in the positive pole. Yes.
I've got that confused. Sorry.
That's all right. I apologize if I wasn't clear. Okay, so there we go. Now, I'm also going to be going back and forth between my my website, so we can talk about the positions. I chose a fairly easy one here, and I just asked this. So the arrogance card is in the past position, okay? And I'm going to go over, and I'm going to go back, and I'm going to. By the way, are you still seeing it, or are you by chance now seeing my? In other words, when I change screens, did you lose
We
my?
see the cards on your stool.
You can see it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I just wanted to make sure. So the past card in a in a time sequence spread is one of the oldest and probably most traditional in a lot of various kinds of divination systems. So the first card, poses the question: how was this circumstance set up? what prevailing conditions were present that led to, and then we go to the middle card, which is the present. And in this case, it's the maturity card. And the maturity card says, all right, so the past got you to this present moment, and this is what's going on now. And then the third one, the future card, is essentially suggests that the present has a trajectory for the future. That once you're in this present moment, this is from where you're at now, where you're likely to go as a result. Does that conceptual three-piece make sense? Okay, because if I don't hear anybody, I'm going to assume, by the way, that you're getting me on this. Okay. So I asked a very generic question, and the question I asked was about my experience with these cards for the last 10 years. And I had to laugh when the first card I drew from the past was vanity, right? I thought, wow, okay, well, all right. So, I mean, I know I look like King Henry VIII, and or at least people have told me over the years, I've, especially when I had my beard. I don't have that so much anymore. And I'm a little, unlike Henry, I did lose a little weight. And I've only had, the wives that I've had, I've not killed. So just so you know, not, but the vanity, of course, now we're talking about a specific energy, right? Now we're going to do some bringing in, and we're going to be talking about some structural decomposition here. So this is going out to the class, and you guys can unmute yourself and chime in, or you can raise your hand. We can make this free form. Remember that one of my big deals is that we're deconstructing the layers of the cards, not just the spread of the cards themselves. So what I'm curious about is we're going to go, the first round is just your simple observations. When you guys look at this simple observation, does anybody have any thought, any impressions, any first reactions to what you see in this layout? And when I see a hand go up, I'll choose you, and then just say your piece, and then we'll move on to the next person. Okay, Karen. There you are, Miss Dewey, and then Alexandra, and then Catherine, and then Terry. Go ahead, Karen.
So arrogance, I see ego, and then you mature and you get involved, and then self-love I see as unification. So I think it's a good hand.
Okay, very good. Good. That's a very good representation of reading it like a sentence, like a narrative. That's excellent. And that's always a good first layer of evaluation. Alexandra, you are next.
Well, since we know what you asked, and we kind of know you and your history, the way I see it is that vanity card is you being afraid that you were being arrogant and vain in thinking that you could do this in the past.
Oh.
But you let yourself get involved in it anyway, and it matured you, and the cards matured into a reality. And knowing that you did the right thing, and that you were actually capable of doing all of this, is leading to self-love in the future, and being more yourself because of it.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Catherine, you're up next.
The chief feature is the first card. So
good. There's the next layer. Excellent, Catherine. That's the next layer I was going to continue. Please go.
That was ruling how you were approaching this. There was the fear that maybe you were either being arrogant and going ahead with this, where you were trying to protect yourself from taking a step forward. being vulnerable and taking the risk of doing that. You did take the risk, you did come forward, which leads to the present, which is an evolution. And we've got a growth, a level of evolution card here, which is a maturity. You've evolved into accepting it and being mature about it, facing it, dealing with it. And moving forward is almost at the personal revelation to it. You've maintained an authenticity. And as you continue to maintain that self-authenticity, it will be a productive experience. You've let the cards evolve into themselves without you tying them down or restricting them. You've let them evolve, and through the process, you evolved as well.
Let me just ask you a question, because I think you alluded to it, but I want to just hear you maybe give more definition in your verbiage. What do you notice about the maturity card? And well, first of all, what is it? It's a soul age card, yes?
It's a soul age card, right? It's a connecting out with other people. It's reaching out and connecting with others, like the cards themselves reach out and you are making a connection with others through this. But at a mature level, it's an evolution. I view soul ages as evolutionary.
Absolutely. Good. That's one of the things I was hoping I'd hear you say, because folks, remember, you can see the soul age cards in this deck as a series of stages. And so, it has reached, the stage 4. I have actually, and of course, someday I'll finish it. I've actually compared the soul ages, for those of you who have ever done official project management, to the 5 stages of project development. And this is the deployment phase. And the deployment phase is not the full implementation, but it's getting it out there, right? And you see the visual image of the reception, right? Of connecting with others. And so at this stage, we know that there's one more phase that this potentially could go, right? And that's to the elder stage, where it becomes, a really potentially embedded, part of this teaching, which of course my ego would say that would be great. And I know for me, it would mean that my message of amor primera, which is, by the way, an Italian statement, it means love first, first love. And that's why it's the positive pole. So some of you might have the older versions of the deck, which is amor propre. And that is a French phrase that when I really did more investigation to it in later decks, I realized I like the implication of this better than amor propre. And so that's why you see it change. So don't worry, if you've got the old cards, it still means the same thing. It is about that. It is about understanding that love radiates through us when we allow ourselves to be loved in the process. And that it literally is that, interconnecting, phase. So does anyone remember the name of this suit that self-love is a part of? What I've called this?
Augments.
Excellent, thank you. Yes, these are of the augments group. And remember, the augments are those transcendental abstractions, right? In other words, these are really falling between essence and personality. They're not really, whereas arrogance is a personality trait that's pretty obvious, right? We see that. But self-love is something that's, way less necessarily overt. It is more an inner spiritual kind of climate that we maintain. And so I point that out because now I'm going to turn it over to Terry for her interpretation. But to realize you've got a personality card, an ego chief feature, you've got a stage card in the soul age, and then we have one of these transcendental connections between essence and personality. All right, Terry, go right ahead.
Okay, so what I saw immediately, what came to me, is you had said that you were given this, you've been thinking about this task since your 30s or something, right?
Yeah, for
30 years.
About 25 years ago is when, why didn't this, isn't a deck, right, kind of thing, yeah.
Okay, so I kind of see this as third internal monad, fourth internal monad.
Ah,
Okay. Maturity being, you really matured through your fourth internal monad in the area of especially self-love too. And how that has kind of undergirded the work that you've now been able to take on, right? As you've matured and gone through the fourth internal monad, the maturity, and essence has come out on top of false personality. You've really, and through this project, it's actually been an act of, in a way, this is just coming to me now. I don't know, maybe Mikey's chiming in, I don't know. But anyway, you've really come through this project, you've come to love yourself more. More self-love, because you're putting so much love into it, you can't help but get it back out of it, right? So that's how I see it. I see it as kind of an evolution of yourself through this project.
thank you, Terry. That's awesome. Beth, I see your hand up again. Go ahead. Where'd you go? Oh,
I'm here.
oh, there you are.
So I agree with what everybody is saying. I don't know that I'm going to say anything new, but I might say it a little bit different way, which is as arrogance in the past, it being chief feature, I would read that as a true fear of being seen. So, right, not connected to self-worth as much as you could be. And then as you grew, you explored that through involvement and allowing yourself to be seen by others. And and through that maturing and growth, your last phase to conquer, or the trajectory that you're headed, is the hardest seeing of all, which is seeing of self.
Wow. Nice narrative, Beth. Really nice narrative. Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, no. Folks, remember, that's what I've been saying, and I want to reinforce it again. I'm helping you cultivate your ability to extract narratives out of the cards. And you've done so, each of you has done so really nicely, referencing different things. Way to go. Janai, you're up next.
Thank you. I missed a little, so apologies if I have a repeat. What I picture
Fine.
here is
You
that
did.
your stage one on the project development, right, begins with your first card when you get the notion of it. And how would I say that? We sages have a tendency towards arrogance. So, feeling proud of it, that vanity piece of it, this will be a feather in your cap, perhaps. Though, of course, as she said, it's a bit of it can be just a buffer between you and being seen. But I think the critical card is in the middle. You're present, right? Because at the place where you enter into the maturity, you get engaged. It's not just two people here, as your drawing shows. It's you and your involvement with all of the energies in what become the cards. And you become involved in your job of service to the greater whole. So that it's not just the next person that's going to get definition, it's everyone that's going to receive the wisdom that comes through them. Because at the mature stage, it's about us.
Yeah,
and this is the whiter us.
Very
the
good.
much whiter us, right? Not just Michael teaching. So for me, the present, the mature cycle card for the present is your catalyst and piece of magic, bringing not only self-love for you, for yourself, but for all those who are touched by receiving the definitions from these cards and the wisdom from these cards. There's going to be more self-understanding and thus more self-love for everyone.
Wow,
Yes.
lovely, lovely, excellent. I love that interpretation. Thank you.
Me too.
Because that's one thing about the authentic self-love, amor primera, is then you become a beacon. You're the full cup that spills out into others, right? And it's not even effort, because it is just, it's that old, what is it? Is it the biblical adage of my cup runneth over? Or wherever that is originated from?
Which strikes me as a really beautiful teaching if you go from future back to the past. A really important lesson for the false personality to say, oh, look, arrogance, we revealed ourselves and look what has happened. Love, greater love at all levels.
Well, also to me, it reflects very much an illustration of the paradigm shift.
Good.
And what the focus of this process that you have, this gift that you have given to people to be able to find alignment. There's been a lot of talk lately going on about alignment channeling. And what I see here is that you have matured this section of your gift of understanding of the teachings and its broader outreach. And it's on a personal level, everybody kind of talked about the personal level, but I just saw that it literally was what we needed to do in order to move into a greater sense of self-love, which would then be the old paradigm. So we've shifted fully into the mature now, and you're giving tools that will help people understand what that tremendous shift in energy means to all of us everywhere, and not just self-involvement, not just neighbor involvement, literally global involvement. And hopefully out of that global involvement of being connected with other people and using our skills in order to help manifest that shift, we all gain exactly what we should be, agape. Anyway, all right, I've said my piece.
All right, thank you. All right, now, so before we go on, we're going to do, Phil, I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you the first shot at this next thing. I want you all to notice your energy field, because I'm going to rearrange the cards like we've talked about, like we've done a couple of times, and then tell me how you see the whole reading being interpreted differently. All right, you ready? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here first, and I'm going to say, so what if it started off in the positive pole, pride? And then I'll just flip this one to ambiguity. Just two of them, just flipping them upside down. What would you say it would be? How does it strike you energetically now, the difference in the energy of the cards, or in this session? And Phil, there you go. I was going to say I'll give you a first shot because you were up. Go ahead.
Pride coming before the fall.
Okay, good. Pride. Say more about that if there's anything else you see.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be, I mean, it's because it's not the way they fell. It's hard to go too deep into it, but yeah, I mean, it would show that because of pride, you were not able to be clear and direct about how to do this, and so it shows up as an ambiguity.
Okay, I want to throw this out there to you and see if you guys notice this. Do you notice that in the positive pole of involvement, it's two people embracing? What do you notice about ambiguity? It's one person on his own, isn't it? Trying to walk a tightrope, thinking like a young soul. It's me against the world, right?
Thus the suit.
That's the suit, exactly. Good one. All right, Phil, will you complete? I'm going to go on to Peter if not.
Yeah, I just wanted to now leaving the last card in the positive pole.
Yes.
Would suggest that somehow, even despite that, you were able to pull it together.
Okay, now let's do this then, just for the heck of it, since you point that out. What if I flipped it upside down and it went to narcissism?
Yeah, well, then the narrative would make more sense, that it just turned into you being by yourself, self-reflection, and yeah, it just served your ego.
Okay, good. Thank you. Peter, you want to go ahead? I'm going to turn it back up for the moment.
You better, because
you had your
we're
whole
seeing the
narrative.
result. The result is not narcissism. The result is the amour, either way you slice it. But what struck me is just a very different process. With the first one in the negative pole, it was hard to get going. You had an obstacle to overcome to even get going. Once you got going, boom, it started to flow. You were involved and it kind of did itself. And here you start with good footing, pride of essence, ready to go. You've got all the information. They're encouraging you to go. They're saying, go for it, only, boom, you kind of fall in a little hole there. There's a lot of ambiguity to deal with. There's a lot of confusion. It's a big freaking job, and it's hard. So the first one starts, but it all turns out well.
Good, excellent. I'm glad at the way you guys are probing and noticing. So Peter picked out, another interpretation of chief feature is also called chief obstacle. And so he named it that way. Notice how his narrative put a different connotation on the way that this project would have started. That's great, Peter. Thank you. And that's good for all of you. So, you Michael students, remember there are many layers of languaging within the Michael teachings that you can bring to these cards. For you first timers who are new to the Michael teachings, maybe it's an incentive for you to, look more into them. But that is what I have a lot more in the ebook of these descriptions of what these things mean in that context. So Renee, you're up next.
My interpretation is that the pride in the beginning, that pride was not a negative thing. That pride was a positive factor in sort of pushing you to develop the cards in the book and the whole thing, because you wanted to create something. You wanted something to show for, from a pride sense, to show the world and to show the Michael teaching. So pride was a good thing in the beginning, but then in the middle, there is ambiguity because when you create something, you don't know which direction to take it. So should I do this? Should I do that? Is this color right? Is this layout right? So that was what you had to deal with in the middle. What choices do I make? Because there is much ambiguity, and stretching out the figure, stretching out hands. It's like the whole world's out there. What should I narrow this down for my creation? And then in the end, the amor primera, you're sort of like a man looking, you can look at the picture as a card. You're looking at your completion, that you've completed the cards, and you're looking at it with self-love, because I've created this wonderful thing and it's mirroring back to me. Yes, this is my creation. So that's my interpretation.
Great narrative, Renee. Good job. Good job. See, I'm really appreciating this style of you guys, taking this on and allowing yourselves to be variable and to extract pieces that form your narrative to interact. And then you can say, if you're doing to that person, well, what do you think? And you've heard me respond to many of you, good ones, that's it. I feel, my catchphrase, many of you know, is, I felt gotten by what you said. And there's nothing better and nothing more wholesome for a human being to feel seen, like the positive pole of involvement, of really being gotten on what's going on, but hadn't been named or verbalized out loud yet. And that's one of the gifts that you give as the reader, as it were. So Jean, and then to Alexandra, and then we're going to shift out of this and we're going to go into some other stuff for a bit. Go ahead, Jean.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to note is I hear people reading the cards with the words as the general terms for the word versus the Michael meaning of the card, if that makes sense. And and I'm not saying it's good or bad, but I think it's interesting to consider that looking at arrogance, the past two commenters indicate, you know, kind of got the Michael point of arrogance in a positive pole, which is you are proud of your thing. And versus just arrogance is arrogance, if that makes any sense. So it may be just something to step back if people think this is valuable, and if not, that's fine too, and consider the Michael meaning behind the various terms that the cards are part of.
And that's certainly about the laying. And, you know, to a great extent, I just want to make a side comment. You know, as I've been going through and each week seeing what we've accomplished and noticing that you guys have been extremely enthusiastic and really willing to input. And I'm so jazzed for that. And what I admit that it also does is it slows up all this, you know, information that, you know, my sage scholar would just like to blather out onto you. Now, I don't see that as a bad thing, but what it means is, you know, past this 6 weeks, there's a whole nother layer that I've only scratched the surface of that we could do. And that would be a really much more deep dive with the cards, but really going through a much deeper level of the Michael cards through a more elaborate evaluation of the applied Michael approach, which is yet again another way that I've interpreted the Michael teachings and so forth. So thank you, Jean, for that suggestion, and I agree. And I just wanted to own that we're doing great, and there was, you know, just a lot here. So take it away, Alexandra. What about for you now?
I keep, with the cards turned the way they are, I keep zoning in onto the maturity card. And to me, that it makes me feel as though, although you went into, you would have gone into, because we know this is not what happened, into the whole project with, you know, a great deal of pride, you also went in sort of anti-maturity concept, which is involve everybody in the world, which is what you did do. Instead, tried to go it alone on that little tightrope all by yourself, and you couldn't make the decisions, good decisions, because you didn't have good input to help you with it. And even though you finished the cards, one would assume, you know, you kind of are seeing it as your own project. You did this, as opposed to everyone in the world and the Michaels helping you put this out. That's kind of how I saw it.
Thank you. Excellent, gang. That's very good. That's very good. Okay, so I'm going to switch out of this now and again comment and say excellent narrative building. And some of you, you know, started taking in the photographs, the images, and what they were suggesting. Now, I prompted you guys, of course, and the biggest one that I prompted you on, but most of you was the fact that in the present card, the maturity card, when I switched it, it went from being involvement, 2 people or more, you know, embracing the project, as opposed to one person trying to do it on their own, right? So, and then some of you wrapped your head around the person looking in the mirror for the self-love card. So I want to encourage you more to go beyond the words and also look at the images that are present. Okay? All right. So what I'm going to do now is I think I'm going to stop this share. Yes, Janaya. And then we'll start in a minute.
I just want to add a little side note, is that I'm glad for you to remind us to take a look at the images. And when I recognize that the images are those that make sense to you, the creator, and whoever guided you in working with these, but they're limited. It's one way to look at it. And so I take it as one other piece of data point. It's a fun, as a visual person's fun challenge to me to think of, okay, what would I image pride as, or the negative? So that's all. I just want us to bear in mind that it's one perspective, valuable, another piece of input, but not and that's it.
And on that point, let me just say that, remember, the way that I presented this is it's the image is not a right image or a wrong image. It's just one that's been chosen. The question is it a trigger like a Rorschach?
Mhm.
Does it stimulate your imagination or the person's? It could be any image there, frankly, right? But the same thing with the background image. Remember last week that the young lady Kong who was here, who joined us, spotted the fact that Tony had asked a question about moving to France. And one of the cards she picked was Life Task. And what was the background of the Life Task card? But the Eiffel Tower. Hello? Just like when Abby picked about, I'm going to sing in this band. And what's the positive pole word for singing in the band? It's harmony. There are so many ways you're looking for the subtle triggers. It's not about, it's not about, you could put anything in there. Heck, if you guys want to, I would encourage you as an interesting little challenge assignment is go through the deck and look at the cards and see which images really are off the scale, that you like, or off the scale that really turn you off. And then go through and then find out what images you would put in that overleaf or in that poll, etc. Yes, Janaya.
And along that very, very flavor might Steve, I'm going to ask you for what's on the background of arrogance. I would have expected perhaps a peacock, but I can't tell what's behind.
On several of the overleaf cards, the backgrounds are not really defined. They're just free-form geometric patterns, or distorted light and that sort of thing. Because I got that in some of them, the background themselves wasn't the major point of it, but it did have, so they just got selected for how they got selected.
Okay.
So
thank you.
That's still some of the ambiguity in it. Okay. All
Next pass, you put a peacock feather behind arrogance.
A peacock feather. Okay. I just don't want to be sued by NBC. All right. So, all right. So, okay. Now, gang, we're going to shift a little bit into a few slides I wanted to talk to you about, and share these with you. Can everyone see my slides at this point? I'll take that as a yes, I hope. All right, I see a few nodding heads. Okay.
Yes.
Oh, all right. Remember, I've been using this phrase about what the cards do. And I said that, and we just actually saw it kind of in action a moment ago, is, they detect like the past, okay? They describe, in this case, the present, and then they gave a direction of what, it was pointing to. Well, I had this realization this week, and that's what created this card, that, when we talk about the original or the orthodox Michael teachings, in a lot of ways, our overleaf set, or any time Michael in a year uses an overleaf diagram, a set of concepts, what they're doing is they're deconstructing what already is. When we get our overleaves, we're getting a set of terms to deconstruct ourselves and look at ourselves in much more precise parts, and be able to understand ourselves. Yet, what I realized this week is what the applied Michael approach, and really philosophically, where it's somewhat of a bit of a difference from the orthodox Michael teaching, and what these cards, and even the exercise I just showed you of turning the cards around and spinning their direction, it is literally giving you the option to use them as a way of constructing your reality, not just deconstructing what you already are. In other words, you can use this vocabulary, these symbols and these terms, as a way to symbolically lay out what you want to do. So it's not just pulling cards to say, okay, what is Michael telling me? It's pulling cards and playing with them and saying, what would I like my trajectory to be? And notice what kind of things you could actually build with them. And so I wanted to point that out to you as a bit of a difference, because that is a different way than the Michael teaching has ever been presented before. And I wanted to say that in a, in a storyboard sort of way, for those of you who've ever done any storyboarding, these cards could serve in that capacity. So remember that in this thing, many of you just did great in unpacking the layers. So I'm reviewing the layers again. Once again, drive this into your mind, because remember, I'm trying to teach you to be, competent readers for yourself, but also as those ambassadors that I suggested that you are, And so notice all of these different things that are present. By the way, you probably recognize a photograph there of our friend Mike Huttinger and our friend Heliana, who was at the workshop I did in 2016 with Terry Benning that she sponsored. So in any case, oops, let me go back here, sorry. I want you to understand, so we've got the positive and negative pole, the words and the images. Those are layers to consider. Now, by the way, in tonight's class, I'm not even, we're going to be going more over spreads and things that I'm then specifically a lot of the, images. But next class, we're going to drill down even more, and I'm going to do a long but relatively quick prompt of all the images I used and why I used them and what they represent. Okay, so the set color and the border. Phil was great. He was able to spot and name the augment set. Why? Because he was probably looking at his color chart, and he could see that those dark browns, are literally, near the bottom, and they're a row. So that augment row, represented things like the frequency, masculine, feminine energy, excuse me, personality, self-love, essence, soul, and then, excuse me, yeah, that's it. I got my brain off wired there. So looking at the set colors and saying, oh, so what part is this? Well, when you're talking about one of those transcendental or augment cards, like the covenant cards, those are, deep within kind of spiritual process cards that are, that leave a lot of interpretation, and the transaction between you living here in the world and your essence and personality. So then the groupings, okay? Remember, I've showed you that the groupings of the card talk about like the images that I've showed you. The mask, the white mask represents the roles. So if we'll see a few other presentations, layouts where you may see that there's a couple of roles in a single reading. What does that mean? What if there were a couple of goals or a couple of attitudes, etc.? So then, of course, the axis orientation. You remember I introduced you to the 4 symbols, right? I say in my presentation of the cards, the diamond is the expressive axis. The club or the clover is the action axis. The heart is, as you might guess, the inspiration and the emotional center axis. And then the assimilation is the spade, digging down, right? That's the assimilative. So all of these things, I bring these up to you to remind yourself to look by. Imagine going at it in passes and seeing all the layers that are present for you to see. So this is what we just did, of course. By the way, that's one of the original color schemes for the card, but I got done with it. So I'm going to pull this off again, but I just wanted to revisit, and you could see. Now, I'm going to take a moment again before we take our break, just to hit a few more slides. So this will be in your slide PDF this week. I wanted you to consider this, that these are the kind of question areas that are available to you. Anywhere as spiritual and personal as spiritual development, or how you might operate in the world. Really what you might do. So things like community service or civic affairs, you know, how do you show up in your community? Things as literally personal and as grounded as your health and eating, your dietary or your fitness regimen. You know, your work, you know, so you have things like achievements, your contributions, your vocations. What about what do you want to learn? You know, we've had some people in this course literally, you know, evaluating whether or not they're, you know, going to seek other forms of whether it's, you know, coursework or some kind of certification, things of that nature. Ask about those. And then, of course, you see any number of things there: your money and income, your finances, your friends, things about recreation. You know, I've often told people that we Americans, even we old souls, you know, we have this heavy imprint of do, do, do. So for you know, recreation, fun, and play, that could be a very interesting place to explore. Now, I'm telling you all these because when a client brings these to you, and if they need some prompting, helping them to formulate their question, you could just quickly whip this out and say, hey, look, you know, check this out. I mean, here are some of the areas. And of course, that's a really helpful prompt, isn't it? That might go, they go, ooh, yeah, that one. And then you say, okay, great. So so how would you phrase your question? Say about, you know, your workplace environment. Let's just choose one at random. And then, you know, let them or help them, you know, put it in a sentence, right? Well, after that, your next contribution is going to be, and I'm sorry, I'm actually, darn it, I got my slides are out of order. I'm sorry. What I was going to say, what I would say here is we will do our spreads and our layouts. Okay, so that is going to be where we go. So you're going to see me sloppily here, jump through a lot of cards and then back up. Or no, on second thought, I'll say, let me ask, are there any questions before I let everybody off on their bathroom break? Yes. Okay, Phil.
I was just curious what the 4, 7, and 10 with those layers, or the 2, 4, 7, and 10.
Yeah, the 2, 4, 7, and 10. Actually, I hope I can make you guys all laugh. This is where somebody who's not really great at graphic programs, who will go and steal other images that sometimes have other things on them, and I couldn't quite erase them well. So, but actually, there's also another thing in that. That's my attempt at a humor tonight. The other thing is, the numbers represent what kind of structures do you want? How many cards do you want to draw on the question? So we know that there's the yin yang, do it or don't do it, 2-card layout. Okay, there's a couple of 4-card layouts. You know, particularly the work group spread, which is 4 cards. Then there is the 7 cards, and there are 2 of those. And there is the overleaf spread, which is very specific, because then you're asking literally for a composite chart about this issue in your life. So it will have a role, a goal, an attitude, a chief feature. We're going to see that tonight, by the way. I'm going to bring that up for you guys. And I'm actually going to have any of you in the group, while you're on your break, thinking about a question that we will then ask. I will type it in. We will have it come up electronically, and then you all can take another couple of minutes to, matter of fact, we'll do it before we go so that you guys all have time to choose your cards. And then lastly, the revelation spread is the biggest spread, and it's 10 cards. For myself, I really seldomly use the revelation spread. And not because I don't think it's useful, but for those of you who know traditional tarot, there's a few really big ones in probably the biggest one that I'm aware of is called the Celtic Cross. And there's also a rune distribution that has a name to it that I can't remember at the time. That's all. And the Celtic Cross is 13 cards, and this rune distribution that I use, or that I know of, is like 12 cards or 12 what do you call them? Stones, runes, right? Anyway, I find that when you're asking a question that this is a big philosophical number when you're using that many cards. Now, each card, as you'll see, is defined and it has positions, but also as a result, it can open up this very broad, lofty field of options and interpretations that can be something that you end up having to ponder rather than ready to just jump into. Okay, so that's what that on the serious note is the answer to that question. Okay.
Okay, real quick question.
Yes, go ahead, Terry.
What you're talking about, the expansiveness, like say the 12 support circle positions, right? Pulling cards for the 12 support circle positions. Would that be in that category?
I would think, yes, I would think it would. You recall, I believe you were there the year that I did the support circles, and I did I used a Hellinger constellation method for that.
Right. And that's when I presented about the animal totems.
That's right. That's when you
the 12 support circles.
Exactly.
But I'm wondering about how these would work with the cards, the 12 support circle positions.
I invite you to take that on as your assignment for this week, and then present your report. Present your report to the class next week.
Yeah, give me all the easy stuff.
Oh, come on. You've been a channel for what, 35, 38, 30 years? Come on.
Yeah.
Second nature.
No, that would be a cool challenge. I'll take that on.
Yeah. And you could even draw a circle with 12 squares instead of these 16, right? And then put the names of each of the support and then lay a card in or something. You invented, Terry.
I'll figure it out.
You invented. You are an artisan. You
me
have
and my
the
finger on it. Okay.
All right. Very good.
All right.
Okay. So
I get to answer my own question.
Hey, that shows we're evolving. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, all right, gang. What I'm going to do now is we're going to go and we're going to use the overleaf spread. So we're going to go to my website. So I'm bringing it up there. We're going to go to the drop-down menu. First of all, let me get rid of the thing that's blocked. Okay, there we go. We're going to go to the drop-down menu. And we're going to go to where are you? Oh, there you are. Okay, the overleaf spread. All right. Now, wait a minute. Let me do it this way because I'm not. Here we go. Useful layouts. Okay, I would do it that way. By the way, I'm showing you a different way to access this. You see under on the very left-hand side, MMCards info. You see it says useful layouts, and then there's a flyout menu that also has the layouts on it. Now, when I use this one, I'll tell you why, and you'll see it in a moment. When I do this one, it comes up with all the card backs, as if you were doing a reading for somebody and you're not revealing anything.
Mm-hmm.
When I put a question either here or up in the Ask section, when I press the buttons, it actually activates the algorithm to go draw cards and fill them in. But for right now, I'm showing it to you this way because I want to make sure you see what the placeholders of each mean. Okay, so the placeholder. First placeholder is our friend the roll. So the way I defined it for the overleaf spread is I said it's the character or the person portrayed in the situation. All right. Then I say, what's the goal mean in this interpretation? Well, it's not necessarily the goal of a person. It's what's the objective about this whole setup that you're trying to find out. What is its statement of what it wants? Then the attitude. Well, what do we know about when we use the word attitude, not just in the Michael teachings, but in regular language? We're talking about the bearing or the point of view or the frame of reference that's being considered, right? What lens are we looking at this through? And obviously something like the spiritualist is going to be a different lens than something like, say, the skeptic, right? One's going to be sharper. One's going to be, more narrow. Whereas the spiritualist is likely to be more broad, maybe less focused, etc. The chief feature. Well, we've been talking about chief feature tonight, and so we say, what reaction might a person have that actually could either facilitate or get in the way of, in this circumstance, in this body of collected issues. Okay. Next to then we go to mode and center. You'll notice this is a complete overleaves chart, right? But it's not an overleaves chart with a soul age. This is just overleaf characteristics. So we're looking at a profile about a circumstance and about a set of inputs. So the mode. Okay, well, the mode is what we know it is, right? How do you go about acting on this? What's your approach, right? Then with the centering is kind of interesting because the way that they told me that they wanted us to consider centering is, how are you approaching this? Are you approaching it with your mind, your emotions? Are you in the middle of actions? Are you literally just acting instinctively? Where is this, coming from in your major, orientation? And of course, these overleaves don't mean that they will mean anything about you at all. It's been really interesting, by the way, and some people have told me, they've said, tell me about me, right? And they've actually gotten 3, 4, or 5 of their own overleaves in the draw, which is, I've always thought has been like, wow, how cool is that, right? But I'm not saying it will, nor am I saying, just so you know, that I'm suggesting that this will actually, if you say, all right, tell me this person's overleaves, right, that you're actually going to get an accurate set about who that person is, as if they were going to a Michael channel or doing the essence and personality profile themselves. I'm not saying that. What I am suggesting is you say, all right, in this situation, what overleaves is this person manifesting in this whole deal? And then give you that again. Remember, it's situational profile, not who they absolutely are. Is everyone clear with that?
Right. It can also be used as a project profile, right? Like
say more.
A project,
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, you can get the overleaves on a project or a year or, lots of different contexts.
Absolutely.
Besides, besides
very good.
Lots of things, years have overleaves, right? Months, weeks, whatever.
Exactly. These can be very microcosmic for a period of time, a specific instance, or very macrocosmically, like you said, the year.
Right.
You could do this, folks, and choose your own overleaves. You could say, okay, here we are in June of 2023. All right, and those channels got their stuff, and that's fine. But what about me? What are my overleaves I'm working on in June for myself? And then Now, body type, I use this very much in a metaphorical sense, as much as it could mean something if somebody asked particularly about a health situation, right? One of the things you're going to see that I'm particularly proud of, I have my dear friend, some of you met him, Victor Anderson, who was the best man at my wedding, is also a really good programmer. And so when we do the spread, what you're going to notice is every container literally chooses only from that overleaf group. So a role is going to show up in the role, a goal is going to show up in the goal, an attitude in the attitude, body type and body type, et cetera, et cetera. So it's pretty cool. You literally are going to be choosing specific. It's not like you're just choosing placeholders and then any card can come in.
So when you do it in person, you have to separate all the cards out.
Thank you. You read the unstated thing that I needed to mention. Thank you, Alexander, for channeling me. Yes, if you're going to do an overleaf spread with someone, folks, this is going to involve your most manual labor in preparation. Okay, if you're doing it in person with your real cards, because it will take you probably about 10 minutes to sort your 7 rolls into a stack, your 7 goals into a stack, etc. Okay. And then what you would do with that is present each of those stacks to the person and have them shuffle those stacks themselves. And then once they shuffle them, have them select a card. Now, here's another layer of divination practice that is going to be your own, that is your own choice. And what that is, folks, is when you choose cards or you have your client choose cards, you are welcome to do it however you like. Meaning you could say to them, choose them face down and then just put them in a line. Or you could say, choose them face up and put them in a line. The first night I showed all of you, I believe, the graphic of what you and in your handouts, for those of you, I believe all of you have a handout, saw one of the optional exercises I gave you called, your own Michael Overleaf's mandala. If you want, have them lay them out like a mandala. That could be adds a level of kind of the mystical divinational quality into doing these things. They don't have to be in squares or in lines like I've done it. It's totally up to you and totally up to your client together. That's part of the co-creative process. Okay, so I'm giving somebody a shot. Who has a quick question about an Overleaf layout you might want? I'll type it in. We'll select the cards. Then we'll take a break. And during that break, you can go do your bathroom, but you can also find the cards in your deck and replicate the layout for yourself in front of you. Anyone got a quick question? Anything pop to mind?
I have something.
Go ahead.
Patricia here.
Patricia, yes.
It came to me, is there a way I'm meant to fit into my local community?
Okay. How? Let's see. How about this? My fit into my local community. How's that? Does that represent your
Yep.
question? Okay.
Yep.
All right. So let's ask. Eeny, beanie, chili beanie. You can always go for a little dramatic effect, especially you sages, right? Okay. All right. So there we go. So now we ask. All right. So, we've got artisan as the role. We've got submission as the goal. We have realist as the attitude. We have the chief feature of impatience as the chief feature. We have the mode of passion. We have the center of higher moving, and we have the body type of Mercury. Okay, gang, start sorting through your cards. Start making your bathroom runs.
You went through that far too fast for me to write them down and to see them.
Sorry. Okay. What I'm going to do is let me see if I can make the screen back up a little bit. I don't know if I can do that. Oops. Ooh, Charizard! Darn it! No. That's the one problem. I'm sorry, gang. That is the one problem that happens with. Oh, please say I didn't lose that. Or she's going to get another chance to ask.
Go back. Hit the back button.
Yeah,
that's just it. Notice the screen is not up right now, dude, because I took off the controls so you guys would have more room to see. All right.
So there it is.
Okay, there it is.
There it is. Yay!
All right. So
10, 18, 25,
Submission.
34, 39.
Yep. And then attitude.
Submission in what negative?
In the negative pole.
Clearly, so.
In the shadow pole. And then I'm going to be questioning you on your interpretations of these things and how many layers you detect. So you guys go ahead and keep working on that. The teacher is going to bug out for just a moment.
What's the final card, Steve? I have everything.
The final card is the body type card of Mercury.
Mercury, thank you.
Can I get the cards from you, Jean? Because
the problem is I have them up through if you go down to impatience.
Here, let's do this. Are you ready? I'm going to make it easy for you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give them to you in numbers. Are you ready? And then just make it
Perfect.
a
And
number.
polls, negative
Okay.
or positive.
Okay, so I'll say 2 negative and 2 positive, okay? All right, so first card, 2 negative. Second card, 10 negative. Third card, 18 negative. Fourth card, 25 positive. Fifth card, 34 negative. Sixth card, 39 negative. Seventh card, 43 positive.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's excellent.
Yeah, that was very helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
And I have it as 6:20 right now. So should we do 5 minutes? Would it be 6:25? Come back. All right, come back at 6:25.
Hey, Catherine.
Yes.
What exactly are we supposed to be doing with the cards? I don't understand.
Try and find your cards, pull them from your deck so that you have them, and then we're to try and analyze them based upon the layout that he's got.
The same cards that are on
Same
here.
cards, right? Not a separate reading.
Yeah, right. Okay, because I was going. Okay, good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh. Won't be being out like that.
So tell you what, folks, when you're when most of you are complete, you know, you can use your reactions button and put a thumbs up or something like that, just to let me know that you're done. Otherwise,
I had everyone come back at 6:25.
Gene, you are just the awesomest.
So it's 6:24 by my clock,
Okay.
my computer.
Steve, are the colors for the groupings, do they tie to energy?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Because, and that's why it's useful to see, remember that, well, and where I got these colors, by the way, from Beth, was from Jose Stevens's book, the Michael Hand book. I actually would have picked white myself, but I figured, because I was dealing with a Michael audience, I would deal with a known dealer of, Michael information. And so I just chose to honor, his color schemes. But the fact that they are any color for this color scheme at least works because it does tie together a set of energies.
Gotcha.
And if you're looking, yeah, absolutely. And if you're looking, of course, some of you are probably already noticing, oh, look, there seems to be some interesting kind of clusters of, yeah, good, Beth, excellent. That's one of the layers, isn't it? That's one of the layers. So so if you don't mind, Beth, I'll just continue to use you as people are coming back on. So what do you notice when you talk about color schemes? What's the most prominent one in this reading?
Well, obviously we have a lot of orange.
Or gold specifically
Gold.
is supposed to be, but yeah, orange is good.
Gold. Can you go up and down a little bit?
Sure, because there's the beginning, there's the second set, there's the next set, and then there's the last one. So a total of 7 cards.
Yeah, and then we have a lot of purple and blue, it looks like.
This is an inspiration card, but we have 2 artisan cards. We have the artisan role and we have the artisan body type. So go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, so we are in the action and the expression.
Excellent. Excellent. We have a predominant, and another way of saying it is we have a cardinal action grouping here. Yeah. We have 3, another way of saying it is we have 3 king set cards. So and then we could look at which overleaf set they're from. Well, it's a king attitude, it's a king chief feature, and it's the king center. So, we realize there's a dominant theme here of about our sovereignty mixed into this thing. But there's also another theme here. So you mentioned the other group, and I said the word. What is it then? It's the 2 cards from the artisan. Yeah. Right. So we have the artisan role literally, but we also have the artisan body type. So whenever we talk about body types, we're also talking about our appearance. And look at the negative pole of artisan, about artifice, about our appearance. So we have some concerns. One way to interpret this is to say, as you said, we have some expression issues, and then we have some action issues that involve personal autonomy, because that's one of the things the king energy is about. Our executive function, our personal sovereignty, our personal autonomy. Is Patricia anywhere back there? Is she back in the call? Because I wanted to.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, so Patricia, since you asked this question, and these are your cards, I would love to hear from you about your first reaction to some of these things and what they might mean to you and what you notice about them.
Well, my overall thing is don't even go there. That's my first thing. You don't have, just because other people are doing those. I mean, I've done it for years and years, community work. And then I stepped out of it to do a lot of, learning healing practices and all this stuff. So when I look at this, I see so many negatives and I'm going, whoa. And just a couple other things to point out. Submission is my goal. And also Mercury Marshall is my body type. And
okay. So good. You got a couple of excellent, you got a couple of your own overleaves in this reading then.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, folks, I'm amplifying. When that happens, that even amplifies more significance to my mind. So so the fact that you got your goal in the negative pole, tell me about your reaction to that.
Well, I try to avoid that at all costs because yes, I love to be devoted to things where I'm passionate about it and I get involved because it means something to me and I can really sink my teeth into it. When I see subservience, I go, ooh, I am out of there. So that's kind of, as soon as I saw the submission card, that's what kind of struck me immediately, that that it's just, not the right time, place, whatever, to be going in this direction. And it just kind of reinforces for me what, it's far too realistic. I see things in the community that need to be done. We've come out of COVID and lots of things going on, but I'm a pragmatist, and I have to find a reason for doing things. Things have to be useful to me. And that's part of why I haven't gone into anything, because I couldn't figure out how my current skills and place on the planet fits within my community. And so, that's just a few of the first thoughts. Is Audacity a plus pole?
It is. It is the positive pole of a chief feature of impatience. And notice it's saying, it's kind of an interesting sort of backhanded, maybe a little backhanded warning. It says, sure, jump now. Don't waste any time. Go ahead. And when you combine that chief feature with the body type of agility, it's saying, sure, go ahead. Jump in if you want. And yet, what are the other overleaves kind of maybe indicating?
There's a lot of reasons why I sort of shouldn't. The first one, it's really what about that I'd have to put on a false mask perhaps to even do it. I'd have to deceive who I am authentically is sort of what I'm getting from that.
Do you sense, now let's make it real life, Patricia, if I might, do you sense that a number of times that when you have contributed into your community, into a group, that you had to put on a certain kind of mask to interface there, or were you able to come off as more authentically yourself or your own skill set?
To be able to fit with the particular group. Well, yes. Sometimes I could just be myself, but there were times when I got really frustrated and when I realized, I shouldn't be doing this. It's way too much. It's going against the natural flow of things. And so, I had to step away from certain things because you do feel like you have to be someone you're not. And so, that's sort of what that card kind of meant for me when I looked at it. The sense of, artisan, it wants to create in some way. And that is a piece of who I am. Mm-hmm. I have a task companion that's an artist, discarnate. Actually, no, I'm lying. I have a discarnate sage. Sorry. I don't have artisan anywhere in my chart.
Okay. So this would be, but in this endeavor, looking to how you would possibly interact with your community, it would be an act of creation somehow. But would it be an act of creation that is kind of a flow expression of yourself? In other words, would it be congruent with you, or would it be you putting on some kind of an overlay, an artifice, a mask to be able to interact? And it looks like the answer on that specific point is that it sounds like you feel like you would have to mask yourself, or at least narrow yourself to a specific kind of persona.
Yes. Yeah, no, that totally makes sense to me.
Okay. Would you mind if I turned it over for Alexandra and Jean to give you some feedback?
Sure, I love it.
All right, go ahead, Alexandra, you're next.
So what I've been doing is looking at Steve's alternate description of each of the positions. So the role is the character of the situation, not necessarily you, right? We're looking at a situation. And if that's artifice, you know, I would look at it in that light, not that you are artificial or that have to provide a mask, but that the situation is sort of an artifice. Under goal, it was the objective of the situation. And to me, your objective is to not be subservient. So that's your objective, right? Don't be subservient.
Well, may I interrupt if I could say,
yeah,
submission is the most devoted of all goals, because and usually the one that's most ensconced, because you throw yourself in there, and it's just, if you overdo that commitment, it can feel like this burdensome weight of subservience. But you know, the fact that it's her goal is what I wanted to point out to you. Was really an interesting piece of feedback that you as the reader could hear and then work with. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think as I look at submission, you really have to look at both sides, and I mean in a positive light as to how can I submit to others, and how can others submit to me in positive ways that the relationship works out well, or the situation works out well, where I feel devoted, not subservient. So it's kind of in both directions. Lots of times in my life, I even think with pets that you're in submission with them, you know, like cats, and
always.
Yeah. And so it's sort of looking at it in that light.
Yes, absolutely. Good. You know, and by the way, gang, now this is not only where your minds as Michael folk come into play, but this is where your knowledge of language comes into play. Because what are some other words, synonyms to subservience? I mean, if nothing comes to mind, that's okay. Oh, I'm sorry, somebody was going to say something.
Well, slavery.
Okay, slavery. When I think of submission and dominance together as a pair, I think of top-down hierarchy. And when I think of subservience, I think of it being low people on the totem pole. And so to the degree to which that is not okay, right? Whereas dominance would be the top people on the totem pole. So bringing in, you know, some synonyms with your words, and then verbalizing them in the course of the explanation to the person, and then seeing how they react. Ask them, what is that? What do you think about that? Because if you offer them word clues and word triggers, it will then help them get in touch and dredge more out of what's in the reading, other than just looking at things and going, and so forth. That is the nature of the difference between divination and channeling. You, as the person who's coming to the reader or the channel, are expecting, you know, quite often expecting, well, do me. Whereas really divination is an interactive process. Channeling, you know, you give the question and the channel, blah, 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 right? So that's why this is a bit more active, because it's your cooperative interpretation at play here. So Jean, next up. Thank you, Alexandra.
So one thing that I think I'm finding interesting about this is that I think this spread could have two interpretations. One, that these are the overlays of the question, or they could be the overlays of the attitude of the asker. And what I'm getting from this is that, Patricia, you are really reluctant to do this based on your past experience, because everything that we're getting is in the negative pole. And given what you've said to us about your feelings about this situation, and then we have two positive pole ones, which is the chief feature, which is interesting, audacity, which is kind of sort of do it. And then Mercury is in the positive pole as well, and it is the on Steve's description, it's run, Forrest, run, meaning go do it. And so I'm kind of wondering if what we're seeing is your ambivalence and about fitting into your community or doing it again because you have this experience.
Great question, Jean. Good.
Yeah.
Patricia, would you be willing to take a stab at answering that for Jean? This is the interactive process that I want to see you guys get and model. Please, Patricia, go right ahead.
Well, I think she's sort of nailed it in this spread. More of how I feel about it shows up as opposed to what any particular project might be about. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Excellent, excellent. And then I believe Catherine, well, first of all, Jean, were you complete, or did you want to add another thing before I let Catherine have a shot at this?
No, the only thing I would say is to look at the two positive pole ones because they have such a specific, similar message.
They do, don't they? Excellent, Jean. Oh boy, gang, you hear that? Now that's an experienced, tarot divination reader. She's seeing the associations. Notice it's a chief feature, and in the Michael teaching, what do we think of as chief features? Well, they're usually ego blocks, they're defenses, they're obstacles, but sometimes they do have a positive pole, but usually they're the positive pole of all the chief features sometimes are kind of a knee-jerk reaction to things. So, audacity, it could be very useful, but with everything else having a negative pole, it kind of says, oh, it's just going to double down on you. So, Catherine, you're up next.
I'm kind of going to build on what Jean was talking about as well. In the spread itself, they've got the card for the attitude. That's the perspective for which to consider or understand this question. Mm-hmm. And the perspective, the attitude is realist and in the position of speculation. Yeah. So it's almost like, is this what you are thinking it will be? Are you speculating about this? But is this really the situation? And I kind of think that that's what Jean was getting to. Is this your view of what it is, or are you really looking and seeing what it really is? Mm-hmm. And then to go along with that, almost a motivation for it, further down is the centering, and it says to use this first. And the centering is the negative pole of the higher moving, which is lust. And what I'm thinking of, another way of doing it is like energy vampires. Other people's energies draw it out from you. You find yourself into emotional and expressions that feel so uncomfortable that you really don't want to go there. And I'm wondering if that's part of the motivation for the reluctance. And I know I find energies.
Would you like me to answer you on that?
A lot of energy from me.
I'm sorry. Okay. You said you had a lot of. It had a lot of energy.
I was just saying, I find crowds sometimes suck a lot of energy from me, and I find I have to barrier against them. So that could be a motivation for why, you are reluctant to go out into the community. And then I thought the audacity, the impatience was actually a way that you might be able to find a way of approaching this, doing something unexpected for yourself. You want to withdraw. Perhaps a way to resolve it, to get to the positive pole of the Mercury, the agility, the adaptability for it, is to do the unexpected. Don't retreat. Don't, find a different approach. Find a window to go through if the door doesn't feel comfortable.
And I have a
where
window
I am.
for you later if you would like to hear it, Patricia.
Oh, sure.
Well, maybe you two can. We'll come back to you, Alexander. But I want to give Beth her shot here. Thank you, Catherine. I really appreciate the way that you added a different dimension to this too. You were jumping back and forth and talking about how the cards related to each other, and that's another good method of revealing layers, but then folding them together, and helping a person see how they, more than just words, but scenario building, right? Remember, it's, we're looking for description, and in a way you can say that any layout of cards that happen to come up is you're detecting what's there, right? That's what is presenting. But the description is in part what you and that other person are doing together. And then once you come with that description, then the next thing is to look and see what the call to action is, if there is one. And in this particular case, Patricia's been very clear that her deduced call to action has been, no way am I jumping into this mess. You came up with an interesting alternative that I think was very well seen and very well suggested, that you have two positive pole cards, which of course are in the minority, but they say if you want to get something useful out of this, make it quick, make it unexpected, make it out of the ordinary. And then I would add in the passion mode card says, but make sure to be careful not to identify with it.
Yeah.
It's not about you.
Yeah.
But you could jump in and just give it a shot. Okay, thank you. Beth, go ahead. What's your hit on this?
I think it's the same as the last two comments, but what I did is I went through the book and pulled out statements and of each card, and it told sort of a story.
Yes.
So I'll tell the story. The story that evolved was that the mask could be your desire to be involved in the community. That might not actually be what you're looking for. That you are wearing a mask of community involvement. And so then under subservience, it gives you an opportunity to experience discerning subservience. Am I being subservient? Am I being a doormat? And then next, with the realist, don't settle on a conclusion yet. Appearances can be deceiving. And then we get into act now, be bold. And then you are more than your labels. Don't identify the outcome as your worth. You are longing for some sort of rush of sensation. And then the shape of it is act quickly, be nimble. Mobility is key. Don't get stuck.
God, that's great. Wow, that is so awesome. See how Beth used the book to create a story, using, sentences that she found significant in relating that. Thank you, Beth. That was awesome. First of all, Patricia, how do you respond or react to Beth's interpretation?
Well, I quite like the approach because several pieces she grabbed, I had also already grabbed. Pieces like don't settle. What was the other one that I had grabbed? Don't identify your own self-worth with it was another one that I'd sort of grabbed. What was the other one? There was another one, but I loved the way she pieced it all together. And as I look at it, though, I'm looking at her overall picture and this sort of jumping in idea. Yeah, I'm just trying to ponder it, and I'll have to keep pondering it. This idea of jumping in. You see, my cadre entity is 5-1. I jump in. And so I am the one who spots the niche that hasn't been met. I jump in to serve in some way. And so the jumping in thing totally, the jump in 2 positive cards there, totally resonate with me, because that is who I am. That's my energy.
So
So I
stylistically,
had it.
go ahead.
I think, Patricia, you know best for you. When I sort of the story evolved, I interpreted jump now as not jump in, but keep moving. You have a need to fill. It might not be that, but fill the need.
Yeah.
Nicely done. That is another way of looking at chief feature, by the way. It is a need that is in want of filling. And a lot of times, what do we do to try and fill our needs? We'll jump all over the board to try and, fill our face with food, or, get a fix of something, buy something, go somewhere, do something, to try and fill an empty place. And it's not that they're bad. They're not morally wrong. And a lot of times they can even be fun, but they might not, but it feels like a yearning and an emptiness that wants to be filled up.
Yeah.
And, yeah. So good. Excellent. Excellent. Good. Okay. This is great, gang. So for some of you who haven't been commenting tonight, a Melanie or a Joe or a Peter, or those of you who haven't said, or Dawn tonight, because she's a reader, and hi Paige, good to see you. For those of you who haven't said much tonight, have any of you found yourself being really getting something, or enjoying something, or having a realization or a revelation, or just learning something simple about how to use the deck for yourself that you would like to comment into the group, so that it's part of the history of tonight's class?
I didn't know about the website and how you could pull up cards or ask questions like that.
Oh,
and I liked it. I just went to the artist section and asked, if that was a good change for me to be more of an artist, and I got a really positive reading from it. So that could be effective too.
Oh, well, good. I'm glad. That's right, Paige. I forgot you in all the material. I had it printed in there, but you literally weren't here for the first class, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I introduced all these things in the first class, and I think we've been back maybe once or twice, but maybe we just missed. So now you know the websites, themichaelteaching.com, and then the one I use mostly is michaelcards.com. And that's
good.
it right now. So, okay, good. Great. Excellent. Anybody else? Thank you for your comment, by the way. Anyone else have a comment or a learning moment, or something they noticed or figured out in my blathering, or somebody else's blathering? But no, somebody else's brilliant commentary and insightful wisdom about a narrative or somebody's cards. I've stunned them. Oh my God. Okay. All right. Well, all right. Then there's a few things that I wanted to go through in terms of, we're going to leave this reading now, and I am going to go through a few more slides, because I wanted to come back to that whole notion of the soul age, the whole soul age set, and some of the significances of that, because again, I think it's worthwhile. But by the way, gang, let me just add a few more comments about this. Okay, good job on getting the fact that the king energy, which is about personal sovereignty, and how you deploy your energy, the fact that there were 3 influences of king energy in this. There was also 2 influences from the artisan cards, and that's about personal expression. Now, there is also a real lot, 4 cards about action. Because why? Because the 3 king cards plus the warrior goal are all action cards. So this was very much certainly a reading where Patricia was asking about what kind of action I was taking, and notice it was embedded right in her question. And this reading really gave her a lot of feedback on, with action cards. Now, the next thing is contracted or expanded, which is another way I use the phrase contracted pole is the negative pole or the shadow pole. So we already heard Patricia report tonight, and some of you prompt her to be able to help get there, that some of her expectations of herself or her sense of obligations or duty, by the way, that's another term for the submission card that I use, is obligation and duty, especially in the negative pole, okay? In other words, it feels burdensome, you know, to do the work rather than a feeling of really self-enriched desire to give or to contribute. Anyway, when you see all these contracted poles, that to me is, I want to harken back to something Terry said 2 classes ago, is it can mean that it's something in her unconscious or her subconscious that's acting that actually needs to be revealed by seeing all these contracted cards to say, oh yeah, right, these are all my apprehensions. These are all my things that I haven't really named. Here's maybe my question was my good intention, but that all those negative poles said, maybe, you know, I'm not really asking the right thing. Or if I am asking the right thing, here's the answer. Does this make sense? Yes.
What does 4 exalted cards mean then?
Ah, a good one. A very, bless you, dear. Thank you. I hadn't even gotten there yet. So 4 exalted cards, we know, I talked a little bit a couple classes ago about how I interpret ordinal and exalted. And what I said is that when you're dealing with a lot of ordinal, it usually means something very personal to myself and very specific. When I look at a lot of exalted cards, it says to me that there's something more impersonal or general or big picture that might be going on between, you know, about this, or other focused or group focused. And since she's talking about her community, you can't get more other or group than that. And it's showing that when it comes to all these her exalted cards, none of them are really looking like they're particularly favorable for other and group, are they? Does that help, Alexander? Does that make sense, my description?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay, very good. Very good. Great observations, gang. But that was, Alexandra, you get one of the stars for the night. Renee got one, now you get the second one. As far as looking at the imagery and looking at your symbols and seeing where there are correlations. And the fact that she spotted 4 exalted cards, good job. Excellent. Okay, so as I said, I'm going to bounce out of this for just a moment. I'm going to go just do my slides quickly, and then we'll finish up for the evening as soon as I share my screen again. Come on, Steve. Where are you? There we go. Okay, so let's take you onto this. Oops. There you go. All right. All right.
By
so
the way, thank you, everyone. Didn't get a chance to say it.
Oh, and thank you for the thank you to everyone. Good job, everybody. Everyone go like this and pat yourselves on the shoulder. Good job. You know, let me just ask you, actually, I'll save these slides to next week. Let me just ask you, how many of you feel like you're really getting the structure of this, and then secondarily getting something out of this? Anyone?
Oh, yeah.
I'm seeing a good number of hands up. Good. Dawn, I don't see yours. So, and oh, I was worried. I was going to say, I always invite the Rhino dog to give me, you know, your honest feedback. I really appreciate it. So, okay, good. As far as structural.
Thanks, Steve. No
You bet.
worries.
All right, great, Dawn. Thanks. As far as structural questions, Alexander, for instance, just had this great revelation about, you know, the nature of exalted cards. Has anyone had a particular insight tonight about the structure or symbols or the way layouts work, or had some ahas about doing your reading that made you feel more confident? Beth, unless you still had your hand up from last time.
No insights, but I just wanted to say I feel a little bit overwhelmed with all the layers, and I'm sure with practice I'll notice more, but you did in a previous slide, you had a list of the layers, right? Did I remember that right? You showed
Yes,
us,
you did.
like,
And
is there
you'll be
a
getting
chart?
it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot.
Yes. Yes.
Which is helpful, and it's a lot to think about at this moment.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that. And I appreciate the candor. And it is true. And I bet you have spoken for everyone here. You know, I created these cards, me and the gang, and I've been working with them for 10 years. And I've learned all this stuff, you know. So I really respect the fact that this is, you know, your fourth class. You know, what you guys have done, yay. And thank you, Melanie, for sharing, by the way, that you had a powerful family imprint spread. That was one I was going to address a little bit next week because it's a very powerful and personal spread. And if you care to, you can bring it next week if you'd like. All right. So Phil, you had your hand up, and then Alexandra, and then I hope you don't mind that I think we will probably call it out to Alexandra. Go ahead, Phil. You're up next.
I was wondering if there could be some discussion about how to ask a question or how a question should be structured so that, you know, the cards are responding in a way that is coherent. I mean, you did a little bit with Patricia, but it seems like, I don't know, there could be more understanding of that.
Okay, so let me ask you then, using Patricia as the example, did you find that the way, where'd he go? Oh, okay, I see. You just moved position on my screen. I went, we disappeared. Did you find that the way Patricia and I interacted to construct and formalize her question was a useful modeling? And did you think her question then was sound? Did it elicit what, you know, you saw on the screen?
Yeah, I was just wondering in that particular case if there would have been a way to structure the question so that there wasn't. I mean, there were different ways to read the layout, and I'm wondering if asking a question in I don't know, a more specific way or would give you an easier way to get that narrative, you know.
It very well could be. I encourage all of you. So here's my comment about that. When it comes to you asking your own questions or assisting your client or your friend, your compatriot, you know, your collaborator, whatever you want to call that other person you're trying to serve, have them come up with their initial one and then question them a little further about it. You know, way before you ask cards even. And then maybe you, as the person who's doing the questioning to help them elicit, write down a few of your impressions and say, well, how about this? Is this closer to what you mean? Notice I reinterpreted Patricia's. I truncated a little bit, and I think I made it a little bit more condensed. And then I asked her, does this sound right for you? And she said, yes. So in other words, we honed in on it. Now, maybe it wasn't absolutely the most specific question. Maybe it could have gone more. But for brevity's sake, we just did a couple of rounds. You have the option. I think that using these cards gives you the empowerment to take that presence of mind and make those questions available to the person to help them make just the right question. And then the second thing that you offer them is when you to go through all the layouts and say, okay, when I put my question, what layout is liable to squeeze through the best format for giving me that narrative and feedback? What are going to give me the most clearly understood placeholders? And then whatever cards come up in those placeholders, I tie that narrative together like Beth did, who gets the third star tonight, for that incredible narrative she assembled. You can, you know, it becomes so clear with every refinement. And so I'll tell you what I'll do, Phil. I've given you some broad perspective tonight, but I'll work on it for next week's conversation, okay, about how to ask better questions.
And Steve, can I add something to
Okay,
this
go
question?
ahead.
Yeah.
Because Jean's a reader already. Go ahead, Jean.
Yeah, one thing that I find is the cards answer the real question that's being asked. Meaning, if the person has something in their head, but it isn't the words that came out of their mouth, the cards are going to answer the question that they're asking. Does that make sense? So it's not so much that the question was asked wrong or badly. It may be up to you as a reader to say, hey, you know, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense for your question, but did you have a different question or a different way you wanted to ask it? And people will often say, well, yes, I actually wanted to know blah, blah, you know, or whatever. So that's just something to throw out there.
I was going to say that too, that it's probably coming off the vibrational intention from the person as opposed to the languaging.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. And that is, you know, one of the things I was going to say on a material sense is, you know, you can always choose another card, right? So I just happened to choose another card in regards to Phil's question, and it came up as dogma.
Yeah.
And I had to laugh because I thought it is a practical question, Phil, but if we can be dogmatic about it, means we're trying to fit it into boxes rather than cultivating.
No, I got that when, yeah.
All right, good. So I guess it was Alexandra who had the last question, and then we're going to call it a night. So go ahead, Alexandra.
So don't want to call it a night. What do other people think about starting something like a Facebook group where we can just chat about stuff with each other without having to, you know, make Steve be there at everything that we do? If somebody has a good name for it, I'd be happy to start it. I was thinking of it as the MT-AMA cards. That's what I was going to call it. MT-AMA cards. If you guys are interested, I will start the group.
Alexander, a question for you is whether you intend that to be for others who haven't been part of this, and future classes.
Not
it's
to
a closed
start,
group.
I would have it closed for this session, and then I would let it go open if you know, the next session they wanted to use the same group. I wouldn't care. I just want to interact with people who know what I know right now, to help me figure out what we're doing. Yes, Steve.
No, I was just waving to some of the people who are saying goodbye.
Oh,
but
okay.
I'm honored that you are so motivated, my friend. I can't tell you how wonderful I think that is. So you've asked the question, folks. What I would say is why don't we you ponder that? Well, I'll ponder that because I would certainly join the group. You know, I'm still a little kid and I'm still a Michael student, so I like to play in the sandbox. And then we visit this next week. Or you go ahead and start the group and start sending out invitations, whichever you want, you know?
Yeah, we have that list of emails that Steve sent out of the participants. So you could create the group and then send a note saying, this is the name of the group, ask to join it, and I'll let you in, or whatever.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay.
And Tony, you're muted. I don't know if you
can just send a request. If you're going to do a Facebook group, you don't have to send an email.
Well, the problem is she doesn't have a list of everyone who's a student here, and then if they're on Facebook or not.
Well, I might. I mean, I kind of have the names, and since we have an email list, I might be able to figure it out.
Yeah.
And if they're on Facebook.
Not everyone might be on Facebook, but perhaps that might be something that they'll want to join for just that.
True. True.
Melanie, I love the ears, by the way.
Yeah, me too.
Tie-dye bunny ears. That's what I call a very progressive bunny.
Well, I saw it as Pride Month bunny ears.
I saw it as Pride.
Ah, Pride Month. Absolutely. Okay. I was thinking, see, this is how old-fashioned I'm thinking hippie, you know, go Pride Month. Okay.
Come into the present, Steve. Those of us with gray hair have to do that.
Hey, what can I say? You know? All right. All right, gang. Well, thank you very much for a really stimulating class. You all were great. And I look forward to seeing you all next week. and I'll process the files, and I should get things to you by Saturday, but probably tomorrow. So,
Thank you.
all right,
Steve,
everyone. Yeah.
don't close the group.
Oh,
Patricia,
don't close.
I have
Okay.
a word or
Yeah,
two for you.
I'm going, Alexandra, I have a question for you.
Okay. All right, you guys go ahead.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, Renee.
If you want to, if the question for me to you is, do you want to be part of your community, and that's what the goal is, or do you want to do good? If you want to do good, I highly recommend you contact the General Federation of Women's Clubs, and they're at www.gfwc.com. And there's a club in every community in the country and internationally as well. So I just met with over 600 women just this last week, and it was delightful.
It's amazing.
And we did a lot of.
Thanks
Oh,
for that.
sorry. No, Jean, somebody said, what does AMA stand for? I was just trying to respond to it. So Jean, it means applied Michael approach in this
Got
context.
it. Okay. Because
Yeah.
I know we call it the Michael motivation card, so I thought it would be MMC, so I got confused.
The MMC are the Michael motivation cards. The
Well, yeah, I'm just
applied
thinking in
Michael
terms of
approach
this
is the
group, yeah.
philosophical shell or specific derivation of the Michael teaching. I mean, it's still the Michael teaching, but it is just that. It is applied toward action in the present.
Yeah, no, I get it. I was just confused as in terms of a name for the Facebook
Oh,
group.
for the group. I got you. Well, I guess Alexandra's going to take that ball and run with it. So it's up to her.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Thank you.
I'll put it together tonight.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right,
Good night.
Patricia, thank you.
Welcome.
Great.
Thanks for the
Thank you
question.
for jumping in there and going for it, girlfriend. Appreciate it. All right.
I know.
All right, everyone. We're
Bye
going
now.
to say ta-ta for now.
Take care.
Thanks,
Bye.
Alexandra.